Welcome back again. The NFL season is now getting closer and closer, and optimism for every NFL fan base is at an all-time high. I'm no different. Considering where the Cowboys are, with Dak Prescott, the offensive weapons, and what looks to be an improved defense led by Dan Quinn, and possibly some rookie standouts, it's very easy to get excited and think it's nothing but smooth sailing for Dallas, all the way through the NFC East. But not just in football, but overall in life. It's important to have a 360 perspective on things, which is why I want to introduce a new series on the channel called Bridging the Gap, where I'll have one content creator from each division rival make their case for their team this season to get a better understanding of what the Cowboys are up against. So today, I want to invite a very special guest to represent the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a host of the Young Fantasy Mind and somebody who I consider a true prodigy in the making. Young Skywalker himself, Hutch Brown. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm super excited to be here. If you guys know me on Twitter at TYFMNFL, I'm kind of like a fantasy nerd, a fantasy football head, but I'm super pumped today. Talk some real football. I'm a huge Eagles fan, so I'm pretty pumped. This is going to be awesome.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad to have you on, really. So we know how to find you on Twitter, obviously, but the question that everyone's probably is asking is, why do I have an Eagles fan on here with me? But to give them some background about you, kind of how you came up as an Eagles fan, tell us about what's your first memory or intro to the Cowboys-Eagles rivalry.
Cowboys-Eagles rivalry. That's really tough. I really got into football. I mean, I watched a game every once in a while with my, cousins, and because my mom's side of the family, a lot of cousins on that side of the family, a lot of like uncles and aunts, all Eagles fans. They really got me into it. So in 2016, Carson Wentz's rookie season, right? That's when I really, really started getting into it, which actually, isn't very long ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. But that first Cowboys game, there was a different energy. Like all my aunts and uncles and cousins were freaking out when the Eagles scored a touchdown, freaking out when, the Cowboys, made a great play. Like it was just such a different energy. And I asked, you guys are freaking out more than normal. Why is this happening? And they were like, because it's the freaking Cowboys, Hutch. They're the worst. And I was like, why? It's because they're in our division and they're the worst. And I was like, oh, I guess, that's how it works. But I'm not, I love the Eagles, and a lot of people think, hey, must mean you hate the Cowboys. I'm not really a hater of any teams, especially because now I've become more of a general NFL fan. But that was probably the first moment, that first Eagles game in 2016, Carson Wentz's rookie season, and they were just losing their minds during the game. And it was funny to me for the first part. And then they started getting angry at me because I was just not freaking out at all. And I was like, oh crap, I got to start freaking out on the Cowboys. It was a whole different energy, and it was completely new to me, and it was so fun.
So you're new to the rivalry pretty much, relatively new, or you're still new?
Relatively new, yeah. But honestly, even after like all these years of rooting for the Eagles, I'm not a Cowboys hater. I really am not. I'm not a football team hater. I'm not like a Giants hater. I'm just, I just like the Eagles. I'm not really a hater of many teams.
Not much of that. It's actually a really good characteristic to have as an analyst. So that's always a plus. So today, just doing something different. I want to ask you some questions about the Eagles, just in general. I know as Cowboys fans, we see you guys across the table, and because it's a rivalry, we take our shots on Twitter. Me especially, at STQ. So just talking about things that I see as general deficiencies with the Eagles, and maybe you can shed some light, give some general context for these questions. So that being said, are you ready?
Yeah, let's go. I'm ready.
All right. So today I'm going to kind of work backwards. So normally we talk about the offense first, then talk about the defense. With the Eagles, I think my question mark is on the offense side of the ball. So let's focus on that last. Cool?
Yeah.
All right. So first off, just tell me, in a general sense, tell me about what you know about the Eagles pass rush. I know very little outside of Fletcher and Derek Barnett. And if you can, just touch on linebacker. Just kind of tell me what you know about that front seven.
So as you guys know, I am a bit of a fantasy head, which usually means not super focused on defense. I'm in no means an expert. But look, what I know, Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox are two amazing pass rushers. These guys can create pressure against any offensive line. They were both Pro Bowlers last season. These guys can make pressure. These guys can bring the heat. Outside of that, there's really just nobody that really brings pressure. Like watching a lot of Eagles games last season, it was Brandon Graham or Fletcher Cox getting the sacks, and it was kind of nobody else. Like it was a little disappointing to see. Like quarterbacks could have like 5-8 seconds in the pocket just sitting there, and it would be like, ugh, like that's just so frustrating to watch. Like, you can't give a quarterback, especially like a quarterback like Dak Prescott, that much time in the pocket. Like, you just can't do that. Like, they're gonna make plays. And then linebacker, I love what we're seeing from Alex Singleton lately. Like, Singleton is looking good. Sean Bradley also is looking good. Like, in the first preseason game, why can't I remember who it was against? This is against the Steelers, I believe. Like they were they were every single tackle. Like, pretty much they were making every play for the defense. Every single play was made by those guys. And honestly, like you said, the defense doesn't have many question marks. I don't trust much of this defense out of a few core players. Like, outside of that, it's pretty confusing to see, like, you know, what's going on here.
So with that said, because I know as outsiders being Cowboys fans, we don't know the ins and outs that well. But from what you've seen so far, and I think you went to camp. No, you went to a live practice at the link, right?
I went to a live practice, yeah. I went to a live practice.
Okay. So, and I know with training camps and being in the summer, we get to see guys kind of up close that most fans wouldn't know about. So I'll ask you this question. Who's a player on your defense that Cowboys fans may not know today, but by the end of the season, we'll know who he is? Who's an unknown that you think that he's a guy on the come up?
Man.
Anyone caught your eye in particular that we don't know about?
The one guys that are catching my eye, I know I talked about Alex Singleton, Gerard Avery. You guys might not know who those players are, but TJ Edwards is actually looking pretty good at practices. I think he's like in the camp we were at, like he might have been the best linebacker at that practice specifically. On the field in the preseason games, haven't seen crazy much from him. I've seen some nice plays, but preseason's mostly been Avery and Singleton. But TJ Edwards, you got to watch out for him. He's second on the depth chart right now for the Eagles in terms of middle linebacker, but still, like, I think TJ Edwards is the guy to look out for. He could be up on the rising this season.
Is he a rookie or second-year player?
I believe TJ Edwards is actually a third-year player. A lot of people wanted him to break out last season as a second-year player. I believe he's a third-year player this season. But I think he's the guy to watch out for.
All right, so let me write this down. TJ Edwards, linebacker. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Next question. So if you could rate the defensive free agent class, what do you feel about what they brought in?
All right, so there's a few guys here I really want to talk about. The number one guy, actually not too long ago, Steven Nelson from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this guy's a monster. I think Minka Fitzpatrick for the Steelers, he's unbelievable. But I feel he just overshadows a little bit of what Steven Nelson can really, really do. I think he just adds a great option for the Eagles, because outside of Darius Slay, there's nobody on the Eagles to trust at defensive back. There's basically nobody. They got rid of Jalen Mills recently. There's just nobody. Like, there's really not many people you can really, really trust in this Eagles secondary. I also like Anthony Harris from the Minnesota Vikings. I think he just adds a solid piece at the safety position, which honestly right now is very, very concerning for the Eagles. I really just don't like what they have at defensive back at all, like anywhere besides Darius Slay. So these two addings are really nice. And then at linebacker, Eric Wilson. I think he's been looking good in camp too from the Minnesota Vikings. 1 year, $3 million deal. Like, I think he's pretty solid. I think he can be a pretty solid starter for the Eagles right next to Alex Singleton, Gerard Avery. Pretty sure I said that name right.
I agree. And I think the part that actually has me most upset is, and I know Cowboys fans mean a lot about the Eagles cap space situation. That was our joke for.
Their cap space situation is bad. It's bad.
But
it's so tough.
But the fact that they were able to sign those players for nice contracts, Steven Nelson is late in the game. That had me.
Yeah, like Nelson went for 1 year, $2.5 million. Like, they got him for pretty cheap. Honestly, I think that's a pretty nice deal for the Eagles.
It's not too bad on the budget. So you mentioned them. I definitely have to talk about them. All from the mind of a Cowboys fan, talking to an Eagles fan. So
yeah.
And you mentioned Darius Slay. So just tell me, so far with the money, the contract, and the performance, how satisfied are you with Darius Slay?
I think he's being a little overpaid. Honestly, I just really he got dominated by a few receivers last year. Like DK Metcalf had an unbelievable performance against him. Devonta Adams just threw him to the ground in the corner of the end zone. Like, I think he's not who he was in Detroit. I think we're past that kind of time now. And it's not like he's super old or anything. Like he's still like kind of in the prime of his career, but I just don't think he really has it anymore. I feel what happened to Detroit has affected him mentally, and it's affecting him physically on the field. What we gave up for him in terms of draft capital, a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick, I'm very happy with that, because that's what they gave up for him in terms of draft capital. I think it was a 2022 3rd and a 2022 5th. I could be wrong in the year there, but it was a 3rd and a 5th. Like it was very, very cheap because of what was happening with the Lions in that situation. But I don't think Big Play Slay is really there anymore. I think it's a lesser version of Big Play Slay. I think we're overpaying him a little bit, but I'm still satisfied with his performance. He's still a number 1 corner in the NFL, and he's pretty good at what he does.
So in hindsight, when you look at this contract in, let's say, 2-3 years, is it a good contract or is it a bad contract?
I'm going to say it's a bad contract. After what happened last year, I really don't like his future. I think I really just, that's it. That's plain and simple. I don't like his future. I don't like what we saw from him last season, because he had a lot of just awful plays. Like he had a lot of plays where you were just turning your head and you looked really confused, and it was just very frustrating to watch him. So at times, but he's still a good corner, but I think we're overpaying him by a little bit.
When it comes to the Cowboys specifically, is there one receiver that we have, either it be CeeDee Lamb, whether it be Michael Gallup or Amari Cooper, is there one receiver that you do not want Slay lined up across? And on the flip side, is there one receiver you want Slay to be faced up with?
Well, I want Slay to be lined up against Amari Cooper, because Amari Cooper, like, I'm going to hate on him. I love Amari Cooper for fantasy. I love him. I love Amari Cooper. But against some big time corners, he fades. Like he has games where he just drops goose eggs on you, and he just absolutely fades out. Like you have to admit it though. I know you're a Cowboys fan. I know it's tough to admit, but there are games where he just completely disappears. Last year against the Eagles, he completely disappeared in that last game. Like he was just gone. There are games where he just disappears. He's against those big time corners, and he's just not built for it. CeeDee Lamb, I'm most scared of, because I love CeeDee Lamb. I absolutely love him. I think he's a great breakout candidate for this season. I absolutely love him. And I'm scared of what he can do. I'm really scared of CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup, I think he's a great deep threat, but CeeDee Lamb can be used all over the field. I'm terrified of what he could be able to do this season.
Is there a little bit of Eagles envy for CeeDee Lamb?
I was so pissed when they didn't trade up. I was genuinely angry. I was like, that was one of the first times, and it was like I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. Like it was really late. I was banging my computer angry. Like that was one of the first time that's ever happened. I was so genuinely pissed off when we didn't trade up for CeeDee Lamb at 17. We would have had to trade up 4 spots. And then we drafted Jalen Reagor. And I mean, I think Jalen Reagor could have a nice season, but I'm not confident in that at all. I'm very confident in CeeDee Lamb. I'm very confident in CeeDee's talent. Not confident in Reagor's at all. And it costed us too, because now we had to trade up to the 10th pick last season, draft Devonta Smith, where if we had CeeDee Lamb, we could have not had to spend that draft capital on receiver and fix another position that we really could have used. I was so frustrated when CeeDee Lamb went to the Cowboys at 17 instead of the Philadelphia Eagles.
An excellent point. It's an excellent point. By the way, I know Jaquette is still picking himself off the turf from Amari Cooper, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So we can change it, though.
Yeah, Amari Cooper has great games. He's a great receiver, but against those big time corners, he fades. He fades out.
Well, I know he's torched the Eagles a couple of times, but that's okay. I'm not here for me. I'm here for you. So
yeah,
let's change gears, because you brought it up. So it's a perfect segue. Let's talk about the rookie receivers. Okay, actually, the receivers in general. Mm-hmm. So last year with receivers, right? We mentioned all the receivers. We talked about CeeDee Lamb. Yeah. So the rookies. We talked about Jerry Jeudy before, I think, in the past online. And even, I believe, it was Justin Jefferson just mentioning him. We've seen so many rookie receivers step in, have great years last year. Is Devonta Smith one of those guys?
I believe so, yes, as long as he can stay healthy. I mean, he's a stick out there running with a bunch of NFL players. Like, he's a stick. Like, he's 170 pounds. Like, he's just not built for the NFL. Look, on the field, I think he plays bigger than he is. He makes some big-time blocks against some big players. I think he plays bigger than he is. Just the problem is the injuries. Like, he literally got injured in the first few weeks of camp. Like, he was just out already, and he's missed a couple of preseason games. He did play last night, and he looked fantastic. He had some really nice routes. I think Devonta Smith will have the best rookie season in terms of receivers. I like him a lot. And I just think that Jalen Hurts is going to struggle in the passing game. And when you have quarterbacks that struggle in the passing game, they love to lean at their number one option. They love to lean on somebody. Just look at Drew Lock 2 years ago with Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton was a target monster 2 years ago, and he had a great fantasy season. Look at Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles with Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson was heavily leaned on last season. And now, Allen Robinson was a great fantasy receiver. Like Devonta Smith, even with, question marks in the passing game with Jalen Hurts, can still be great. Just he could put up numbers. I think Devonta Smith can put up great numbers this season. I think he's going to put up the best numbers in terms of rookie receivers.
Okay. So I can't take you out of fantasy, but I can't take the fantasy out of you, but that's okay. All right.
Yeah, man. Gonna mention some fantasy here and there, but I know we're here to talk more Eagles football.
So follow-up question to that same logic with the receivers. In Philadelphia, is Smith and Jalen Reagor the future at wide receiver for the Eagles?
Yes.
Are those guys the fixtures? Yes. Tell me why.
Oh, no. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I wasn't answering the question. So Reagor, man, as much as I want to believe in Reagor, it's so tough. He did absolutely nothing last season. Like he had nothing. He had a couple nice catches, but otherwise he had nothing. Like it was really disappointing for Reagor. But I like him moving back into the slot because he's not built for a number one option. He's not built as a number one option. And he was better in the slot. Like he had some nice routes in the slot. He had some nice catches coming out of the slot. When he was on the outside, that number one option, he was just not built for that. Reagor moving back into the slot with Devonta Smith on the outside as the number one. I like him a little bit more, but I'm also very optimistic about Quez Watkins. I really like what we've seen from him in the preseason, and he just mossed somebody at practice. It was savage. It was the play of the day. I mean, Jalen Hurts made an absolutely amazing throw on the run, but Quez Watkins went up there, got the ball, mossed somebody, and it was just fantastic. Quez Watkins has made some plays in the preseason. He made some waves. I really like what we could see from him.
All right, guys, you heard it first. Watch Quez Watkins.
Yeah, Quez Watkins is a guy to look out for.
I wanted to skip ahead, but only because we're going to do this all at once with the main focus of this video. But let's skip ahead just to offensive line, okay? So we saw last week the offensive line, there were struggles between the injuries with Jason Peters, why they finally hung him up, and not the line that we've been accustomed to seeing for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think it's a two-part question for me at this point. When it comes to offensive line, what improvements have they made, and how much does that impact Miles Sanders? Because, of course, he's the one I worry about in the backfield.
They haven't made many improvements to the offensive line, to be honest. They drafted a second-round pick. I can't remember the exact name. I'm sorry. But this guy has 2 ACL tears on his resume. So, he was amazing, looking like the best offensive lineman in this draft, and then he had 2 ACL tears, and he's been set back a little bit. Honestly, they haven't made many improvements, but their offensive line is unbelievable. I really like their offensive line going into the season. They just got to stay healthy. Look, you got Andre Dillard and Jordan Malathalia taking left tackle, right? You got Isaac Sumalo. I can't pronounce that name right.
Isaac Sumalo?
Sumalo, yeah. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce names. And center, you got Jason Kelsey, right guard Brandon Cooks, right tackle Blaine Johnson. That's a great offensive line if healthy. Those guys are veterans. They are a little older. But last year when they were healthy, they were dominant. If this offensive line stays fully healthy, they will be a top 5 offensive line. It's just if they can stay healthy or not. And if they stay healthy, it's going to be great for Miles Sanders. I truly believe that Miles Sanders is a great running back. I do believe that. I think he's a good running back. I think he's a solid pass catcher. The Eagles had 14 different offensive line combinations last season. Just think about that. 14. That's almost one for every game. So that's a new offensive line combo for Miles Sanders to have to adjust to and just get good with. And that's just impossible to do almost every single game, right? That's just it's not possible. So Sanders, if he has a mostly fully healthy offensive line next season, he could have a really nice season. He could put up some great numbers. But the injury concerns are really there with that Eagles offensive line. They're so concerning. It's very concerning with them.
No, I understand. And speaking of which, only because I've heard this a lot, especially in the fantasy community, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot about this guy. But my question is Miles Sanders going to be the lead back at the end of the year based on conversations I'm hearing about in the Gainwell?
This is a contract year for him, correct?
I think it's the third year, actually.
This is not a contract year. This is third year. I think he still will be the lead back, but he will not be the workhorse back. Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott, Jordan Howard will all get involved somewhat. I think Kenny Gainwell is going to be the most involved back behind Miles Sanders. I think he's going to just kind of take over that third down pass catching role with Boston Scott was doing last season. I think he's going to kind of take over that kind of role. And I love Kenny Gainwell. I think the fact that he fell to the fourth round, right, of the draft was ridiculous. I can't believe he fell to the fourth round to the Eagles. That was just a great pick there. I don't love it for Miles Sanders fantasy, but for the Eagles team, I really like it a lot. I don't think Sanders is built to be a workhorse running back. He has had some injury problems over his short career. And Kenny Gainwell helping him out on third downs, helping out on those pass catching work is going to be very helpful for this Eagles team. He's very explosive. I just don't think Kenny Gainwell can be a workhorse back because he is like 180 pounds. Like he's not like built like a workhorse back. So that would be tough for me to bet on that. I still think Miles Sanders is going to lead the backfield. Kenny Gainwell's got to watch out for it. I think he gets decent touches.
Can't bet. All right. So disclaimer for you. The rest of the questions from here on out are going to be drama filled. Okay. They're built just to create some drama within the Eagles. Sorry, it's my way. It's what I do.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
All right. First question on this side of town. How surprised are you that Zach Ertz is still an Eagle?
Honestly, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because you know why? Because he's absolute trash and nobody wants him. That's why. Zach Ertz, I believe, is done. It's not fun to say because now he's on our team again, but I think he was a waste of targets last season. He was awful. And I just think he was so bad. He's never been athletic. He's never been an athletic guy because I just make fun of him all the time because when he catches it, he falls over. Like he is like 5 yards after catch yards. He just catches the ball and falls over. It's so sad to watch, but it was just on another level bad last season. And I really hate it, especially for Dallas Goedert, because I love Goedert. I think he's a great tight end, and I think if he was alone, he could be unbelievable. But now that Zach Ertz is there, he's going to take a lot of targets, and it's going to be so frustrating. I hate Zach Ertz. I'm genuinely not happy with Zach Ertz right now, being an Eagle. Not surprised, because he's bad. And the Eagles couldn't even get him for a 4th-round pick, and I'm not surprised by that at all.
Let me ask you this question. How long have you been on Twitter?
I've been on Twitter since this February.
This year. So
this year. Yes.
So for my Cowboys fans listening, everything he said about Zach Ertz, every single thing he said about Zach Ertz, we've said about Jason Witten for the last maybe 6 years. Every single thing. Being slow, catching the ball and falling over, not breaking tackles, taking snaps from a younger, more athletic tight end. Every single thing that he said applies to Jason Witten. However, the big shocker is this. I've never heard not one Eagles fan ever say this about Zach Ertz. So,
I think I'm on the outside here. I know I'm on the outside. Like I already posted this on Twitter. I would get a lot of hate for it because Zach Ertz won the Super Bowl. He had a Super Bowl winning touchdown catch, and I'm like, who cares? That was like 3 years ago. Okay, like seriously, shut up about Zach Ertz. He's done. He's washed, and he's never been an athletic tight end. Which is honestly, if you're gonna use your tight end, he needs to be athletic. You can't just have a guy that catches the ball and falls over. It's trash. It's useless. Stop saying Zach Ertz is good. He's not good anymore. I'm sick of it. I'm genuinely sick of it. I know this hurts as an Eagles fan to just trash the Eagles right now, but Zach Ertz is done. I can't with him anymore.
So from one thing that you said hurts other Eagles fans, let's go ahead and see what hurts you. Let's talk about the quarterbacks for a second. All right.
Okay.
So here's a question. At what point did you realize the Carson experience was over? And just for this year, in the vacuum of this one season, how do you feel about Jalen Hurts being the guy going into this one season?
So Carson Wentz, man, I've been a Wentz truther. I have liked him. So it was probably like, I think it was the Steelers game was so frustrating. Week 5 against the Steelers. That's when I realized it's like, oh, he's done. Like he's not good anymore for the Eagles. I think he could have a nice career with the Colts. Now that he's moved to the Colts and Andy Reich is there now, Like, I think he could have a nice career with the Colts, but he's done with Philly. I realized that week 5 against Steelers, that was such a frustrating game. It was so in reach, and they screwed it up. And it was so frustrating. Wentz had multiple interceptions in that game, I believe, and he was just so bad. And Jalen Hurts this season, I am intrigued by him, but I'm not confident in him. I do like, I like see Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes around the league, right? These guys can run the ball well. And like Kyler Murray's, like these guys add another level to their offense. Another thing you need to be worried about. And Jalen Hurts can add that. He could have like 800 plus rushing yards this season. I wouldn't be too surprised. He could have hit 1,000. I think he could really hit 1,000 if he really does not like to throw the ball and he really struggles in the passing game. He could run for 1,000 yards. It just adds so much more to the offense. Carson Wentz was maybe the most immobile quarterback in the NFL last season. All he did was stand in the pocket for like 10 seconds, and then he get hit. It was so frustrating to watch. Like, because I know he is decently mobile. Like, he can run, he can move out of the pocket. But a lot of the time, he was just stuck in the pocket, and it was so sad. It was so sad. It might have been the coaching staff's fault. It might have been Wentz's fault. I still don't know. To this day, I really don't. But I think Hurts just adds another level to this offense. If Hurts struggles at all in the passing game, I feel the Eagles are not going to be afraid to take the shot at a quarterback. Because as much as I want to say they'll be a great team, I don't think this is going to be a great team. I think they're going to be right around 500, just below it, like around there. That'll probably get them to a high-end pick. And I don't be afraid to take a quarterback. I really, really don't. They took it with Wentz last season in the second round of the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if they took one in the first round. They have 3 first-round picks as long as Wentz doesn't do something stupid, as long as he plays like 75. I think the deal was 75 or 80% of the snaps.
75%.
75%, right? At least 75, and they make the playoffs, which they did last season, and with Phillip Rivers. So I think that could definitely happen. I think they'll make the playoffs this season as long as Wentz stays fully healthy. We'll have another first-round pick. If not, it'll be a second. Still, with 2 first-round picks or even 3, I think the Eagles won't be afraid to take a shot at a quarterback, and that's scary for Hurts, especially in sorry to put in fantasy football here, but in Dynasty, you need to get hit. You need to stop drafting Jalen Hurts, because if a quarterback were to be drafted by the Eagles, it's going to plummet his value, and he's literally going to be worth nothing. And he's a pretty high draft pick right now in Dynasty because he's like 22 years old and he has the leg and he has the rushing ability. Don't do it in Dynasty. Redraft, I do like him a lot because the Konami code is the rushing for the quarterbacks. It just gives you an edge. But let's talk about football again. So yeah, Jalen Hurts for this one season, I think he could really step up. I love the way he handles himself. I love his confidence, just his hardworking mentality. I really love that about him. But I'm not confident. But because in the games last season, he was not great in the passing game. Still under 50% completion. Not really doing much in the passing game. And he got benched. So I'm a little concerned for the future of Jalen Hurts with the Eagles.
So focusing from on the field, back to the men upstairs in the building. So Nick Sirianni. Okay. Yeah. So I know I can be pretty awkward in person, but he had the worst first impression that I've ever seen from any coach ever. Just tell me how much does that concern you as a fan? And do you think, from a general standpoint, do you think that will translate to issues with communication within the NFL locker room? Just your honest opinion. No analytics involved, just the conference to communication with the team, and just for cohesion's sake, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, he had an awful first impression. Like, he totally did. I don't think it's going to be good for his future with the Eagles. Like, I've done a lot of research on the Doug Peterson, Jeffrey Lurie arguments. A lot of it was about, what is the future of this team? And Jeffrey Lurie knows this is a rebuild team and they're going through a transition. And I feel like with Nick Sirianni as a head coach going through a rebuild, like, they don't really... I just feel like they're going to be more willing to fire him or get rid of him and get a new coach. And he made an awful first impression on the... Oh, sorry about that. He just made an awful first impression. He really, really did. And it's going to affect the locker room. It's going to affect the play of the players. And there could be some debates here between players and coaching staff, and it could really be rough. What I do like is he's coming from that Colts offense run by Andy Reich. He was the offensive coordinator there. Or, sorry, was he the quarterback's coach? Coming over there, the Colts had a nice offense last season. It wasn't flashy, right? The passing game was not flashy. But with the limited weapons they had, they were still a good offense. He could bring that type of energy to Philly, I think, to a nice offense in Philly. But I'm very concerned about the impression he made, as it seems like you are as well.
I mean, it's meme material for me, so it's all good. Meme ammo.
Yeah.
But so let's ask this question. Just from a football operation standpoint, were they right Philadelphia? Were they right to trade Carson Wentz, fire Doug Peterson, but still keep Howie Roseman? Were they right to do so?
Okay.
I think. Tell me why. You guys, if they were.
Yeah. I think they were right in firing Doug Peterson. Here's why.
Please tell me why, because I wouldn't have done it. So
I think they're right. Look, it was a debate between Jeffrey, as I mentioned a second ago, Jeffrey Lurie and Doug Peterson. It was a big argument between those two. Doug Peterson thinks this is a win now team. I don't think it is, personally. I really think this team is in a rebuild mode. I think they've got to build from the bottom and just kind of start over. I really, really think they do. And Jeffrey Lurie understands that. So I'm with the firing of Doug Peterson. And I'm with the trading of Carson Wentz, because having him there was such a poison in the locker room. He was just a locker room cancer, especially, towards week 5, week 6, week 7. He was losing that locker room. Like, he really, really was. He was just playing awful. And the locker room did not trust him anymore. And it was very, very frustrating to see that. But they didn't fire Howie Roseman. That's what really frustrates me. Because if you're going through a rebuild, clean the house, right? Howie Roseman has made awful draft picks in the last few years, like some awful picks with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, with Jalen Reagor in the last couple of seasons. Like, it's just been bad. The drafting, and Howie Roseman's a big part of that. It's been really bad. The talent evaluation has been really, really bad. I think you got to go clean house and just get rid of Howie Roseman. But I support the other two moves.
Good points, man. And I've always been a proponent of that. I think when you want to go clean and start over again, everyone has to go. Yeah. Then you're giving one person the authority over somebody else.
Yeah.
Predict the Eagles' total record for the season. You touched on it a little bit, but give me what's the Eagles' final record for the season, and what will be the Eagles' record versus the Cowboys?
So Eagles, like, I don't have an exact record plan out. Like, I don't have like the matchups in front of me. I think the Eagles are going to win, I would say, like 6-7 games. I would say 6-7 games for the Eagles, which means they would be 6-11 or 7-10. I think they're going to be just under 500 this season. I think that's a reasonable thing, because, I do believe in Jalen Hurts. I do believe in Devonta Smith. I do believe in this young talent they have. And their defense with Steven Nelson and with Eric Wilson added, it's a little better. So I do think they could, have a solid season, but it's not going to be anything great. I don't think they hit above 500 this season. I don't think they go, what would that be? I don't think they would go 9-8. I don't think they have 9 wins this season. I think they have 8 wins or lower. Cowboys, I could realistically seeing winning 12 games. And here's why. People talk about their defense and how it's trash, right? I like Trevon Diggs a lot. I think he could really have a nice step forward season. I absolutely love Micah Parsons. If we had more receivers in Philly, I would be all in on Micah Parsons at pick 10. Like, that's just, Micah Parsons is a freak. I love him. And you got Van Der Esch there. You still got some nice pieces on that defense. I think this defense could be better than what people think. Still below average. It's still a below average defense. But I think they could still be a solid defense. And this offense might be the best in the league, with CeeDee Lamb, with Amari Cooper, with Michael Gallup, with Dak Prescott, with Ezekiel Elliott, with Tony Pollard back there. Like, this offense is just going to put up points and put up numbers, put up some points, light up the scoreboard. I think their defense is enough to get them to like 11, 12 wins. I could realistically see them winning that many games, making the playoffs, but obviously losing in the first playoff game because they choke. That's what happens.
Well, I appreciate you, giving us our flowers.
Yeah. Had to put something else in there. They've won one playoff game in the last 25 years. That's how it's been. It's been bad.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have an Eagles fan. So with all that said, I actually meant what was their record versus the Cowboys? Meaning, is it a sweep for the Cowboys? Is it a split?
Oh, sorry. I thought. Okay, sorry.
It's all good. I'll take it.
Honestly, look, Philly with the fans being back now with their energy, and I think that team is good enough to come together. I think they'll be enough to beat the Cowboys at home, but they're not beating the Cowboys at Dallas.
So we have
there's no chance they beat the Cowboys in Dallas. I feel there's a 0% chance. In Philly, with that energy, with those fans, I think they could do it. I feel it's more likely the Cowboys sweep them than the Eagles sweeping them. It's a very heavily with the Cowboys sweeping them than the Eagles sweeping them, but I think they go 1-1. I think the Eagles could rally together and win a game at home.
All right, so we have the Eagles going either 6-11 or 7-10.
Yes, that's what I would put them.
6 or 12-5, and either more likely a series sweep for the Cowboys and at worst a split.
The Cowboys at worst will split. There's no way they're losing both.
But we'll lose a playoff game, he's saying. Okay.
Yes, right. You'll lose the first playoff game because that's what happens.
I'm so glad you weren't around for 2009 because I troll you to oblivion, but that's fine.
Oh man,
that's fine.
I was 3 years old then, so you know.
Now I feel like I'm picking on you. Okay. But,
nah, man, you're good. You're good. It's the Eagles fan talking to a Cowboys fan. I know this could get crazy, but you know, all good.
It's been an absolute pleasure. But before we get out of here, man, let everybody know how I can find you, or we can find you. Everybody listening can find you on Twitter and the podcast. Please tell us.
So, guys, you could follow me. I appreciate you, man, for letting me talk. You guys can follow me on Twitter at TYFMNFL. That stands for the Young Fantasy Mind NFL. I do all types of stuff over there. You can find pretty much everything I do on my Twitter profile. I have my website on there, theyoungfantasymind.com. You can go to my website. You can find my rankings. You can find my articles. And you can find the podcast over there. You can find everything I do on that website. And on Twitter, I'm always hanging around on Twitter. I love, interacting with all the other analysts, interacting with people, giving out fantasy advice. Like, my DMs are always open. If you really have a tough question for fantasy, just hit me up. I'm always open. You guys can totally ask me questions. That's what I'm here to do. And I've really been growing in this industry, and I've been super pumped. It's been a great time.
Yeah, man. And once again, glad to have you on. So it's all the time that we got. My special guest, Mr. Hutchinson Brown. I'm LP Cruz. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, Cowboys up. Peace.